He has a collection of ancient artifacts that he created. More is known about him than any world leader. He can speak Spanish backwards. He is the first brony and the first Let's Player. He is the most interesting Neet in the world.
My name is Christian Chandler. I am here, and y'all are there.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the NEETwork, the podcast for all things neat. We are your hosts. My name is Theo, and with me, as always, is
Dexter.
Before we get into the subject of the episode, why don't we talk about some neat current events? Dexter, you had something you wanted to talk about real briefly.
It's a sad day. Not even pertaining necessarily to NEETs particularly, but I'm sure many NEETs out there are hurt by the news. The incredible author of Berserk, Kentaro Miura, has passed away of a aortic dissection. It's a rather unfortunate news. He will be missed. He was building quite the incredible story. Unfortunately, we're going to be stuck in the boat arc forever, but you will be missed. Rest in peace, Kentaro.
Rest in peace, Kentaro. For anyone not in the know, it's one of those very sad instances where the artist dies before he finishes his magnum opus. So we may never know how Berserk was supposed to end.
He's been working on this magnum opus of his since the 90s. So it's a couple of decades in the making, and it was making up to be an incredible story. So a moment of silence for a fantastic artist who left us too soon.
And on a less serious note, I have a small announcement to make about the podcast. We've been posting the audio for our podcast on a website called Podbean, and recently we've filled up all the free storage they'll allow us to have. They'll only allow us like so many minutes of storage before we kind of have to start paying for membership. And I've decided that I'm going to sign up for a membership to the site so we can keep the audio for our old episodes up on Podbean. It's not very much. It's only like $10 a month. I'm not bleeding out money to maintain the podcast, but since the NEETwork is now costing money to run, I've decided now is a good time to start monetizing the NEETwork. And we'll talk about our methods of monetization at the end of the episode. But for now, for anyone who is concerned, the NEETwork will always be free to listen to and download, and any financial support you show for us is 100% your choice, and we appreciate it should you choose to show that support for us.
But getting to the subject of things today, we're going to be talking about a different artist.
Very different artist.
Someone who has his own masterpiece that he's been working on for decades. Care to introduce him, Theo?
Yes, we will be talking about one Christian Weston Chandler. Let's see. You are quite a bit less familiar with this character than I am, but you've definitely heard about him from me.
I remember you regaling me about him when we used to have bonfires at the old house.
Yeah, we'd have like fireside chats about this this person on the internet, this weirdo on the internet for hours because there's so much to talk about. And just about every podcast that talks about like weird things on the internet has done an episode about Chris Chan. And for that reason, I kind of promised myself that if I ever were to have a podcast, I would avoid the subject of Chris Chan. But I think in this instance, I'm going to make an exception because this aspect of Chris Chan has never really been done before. And this aspect of Chris Chan is Chris as a Neet. I don't think Chris Chan's Neet life has ever really been discussed at length. And I plan to do a few episodes like this where we look into the life of a famous Neet and examine their Neet lifestyle and maybe give our own kind of recommendations or our own ratings, as it were.
Interesting. All right. I've heard a lot about this character. I know that you in the past have described yourself as something called a Christorian. Basically, someone who's very familiar with this particular individual. We've been through many chats about it, so I'm kind of interested to dive maybe a little bit deeper into the less talked about aspect of Chris.
As far as like, I guess the obscure Chris subject matter goes, I'm sure there are lots of places where you can hear him talked about. There's a huge documentary about his life on YouTube.
Everything he does, to some degree, is recorded somewhere. Even the minor stuff.
Yes, it's said that like more is known about Chris Chan than we know about basically any world leader. Mostly because Chris, for some reason, loves to give the most intimate details of his life.
He's one of those people who has to talk about everything he does.
Right, right. And lots of people have essentially put him under a magnifying glass.
And there's no filter.
Yeah, no filter, under a magnifying glass, and you almost have a Truman Show-esque situation with Chris Chan where his whole life has been examined by people and made very, very public. But who is Chris Chan, for those not in the know? Christian Weston Chandler, aka Chris Chan, is, at least at the time, he was a man whom the internet discovered back in the year 2008. And since then, the internet has, not gonna lie, been basically making his life hell. And a lot of his own efforts are kind of making his life a living hell too, even without the help of the internet. Chris Chan's claim to fame is his efforts at publishing what we might call a webcomic called Sonichu.
If you can call him putting any effort into it at this point.
Right, he's largely abandoned the project. Even if a lot of his thoughts are kind of devoted to Sonichu, he certainly doesn't work on the comic nearly as much as he used to.
Would you argue that this is actually kind of a side effect of his neatdom? He has no need to work, or has no desire to work whatsoever. Does he treat Sonichu as work?
There's definitely an element of that. Yeah, when Chris Chan... Well, maybe we should explain what Sonichu is first for like people who aren't in the know. Sonichu is the main character of his comic, and Sonichu is like a meld between the character Sonic the Hedgehog and Pikachu from Pokemon. And the comic itself heavily features aspects of both franchises. And Sonichu itself is not so much of fan fiction as it is a sort of escapist fantasy and metaphorical diary for Chris. I'm sure, like, if someone with a background in psychology were to read Sonichu, you could get a lot of, like, Chris's mindset by, like, what the characters do and the situations of Sonichu.
Well, I believe Chris himself is actually self-inserted into these diaries.
Oh, heavily. Yeah. But, yeah, when I say Sonichu is the main character of Sonichu, I put that in finger quotes because very quickly Chris Chan takes over the plot of Sonichu.
Wants to be his own hero, sort of thing.
Right. He kind of makes himself out to be the hero of the story and eventually does overshadow Sonichu. And you mentioned that what was that you mentioned about Chris Chan not really feeling the need to work?
So you don't suppose that he's kind of embraced the neat lifestyle to the point where he treats riding Sonichu as a job, do you?
Well, there's an interesting I guess kind of effect that we've seen Chris take on, and that's part of it is like when Chris is put under any pressure whatsoever, he almost immediately folds under it. And I think to some extent this extends to his work, quote unquote, on Sonichu, where if he feels as if he's forcing himself to write Sonichu, he can't bring himself to do it, right? If there's some pressure to, say, meet a deadline for himself, he can't bring himself to do it because any pressure whatsoever is too much, and he folds under it. And I think he's said this himself in some way.
So he doesn't do well with pressure.
That's a gross understatement to say he doesn't do well under pressure.
I can understand that. I know sometimes when I have crippling deadlines, it can be a lot harder to focus.
It's not even like a crippling deadline. It's like I sometimes I put myself into Chris's shoes, and I think like if Chris could do one page of Sonichu every day, then well he'd have a lot more Sonichu, wouldn't he? But he can't even bring himself to do that.
What do you suppose the reason for this is?
This is the same thing. He doesn't want to feel like he's being forced to write Sonichu.
So what does he do with his time? Because I mean, he doesn't work. He doesn't really have to do all that much. Does he just spend his whole day on like Twitter or something, protecting himself, or
You know, that's a good question. I'm not actually sure what Chris spends most of his time doing. I would imagine it's mostly video games.
oh, Vidya
Vidya.
grasps another, huh?
Yep. Yeah, Vidya. Another person falls into the pit.
Such a shame. We have so much talent, so much to be read, and it just has to be written first.
Right.
And unfortunately, he just can't right now.
Mm,
Too much Vidya to be played.
yeah. And I think the first question that most NEETs have to answer for themselves is how they're able to afford a living despite not having a job. And Chris himself hasn't had a job in many, many years. Like uh I think the last time Chris actually had a job, it was before he was discovered on the internet in 2008, and that was Wendy's, I believe.
So he's never really worked. No offense to fast food workers out there. He's never worked a true professional job.
Oh no, I mean it could even be argued that what he did at Wendy's was pretty minuscule as well. I can't imagine he was making a lot of money. And from what I understand, or like from what we can glean, this is one of the kind of mystery periods of his life just because it was so long ago.
You don't suppose that this actually plays a big role in him becoming a NEET, do you? Kind of got burned out at the wage cage early.
Oh no, I think the reasons for his attitude toward working are kind of embedded with his parents because Chris himself was born to both of his parents being retired and being on pension. So essentially, Chris grew up with two parents who never went to work and never talked about working. So I think this might have ingrained in him this idea that work was unnecessary.
I was under the impression that his dad was actually a like kind of a hard worker though.
Oh, his parents absolutely like did work hard and have good jobs. It's just they had him when they were so old.
So then by the time Chris came around and was paying attention, work kind of became sort of secondary, not
It wasn't even secondary.
it was like back of the mind, never necessary. Work was no longer necessary.
At least for his parents, no.
Wasn't his dad like an engineer or something?
Yes, but I don't really know the specifics of what he did. Apparently, his dad is at least partially responsible for modern plastic, is what I understand.
That's incredible.
Or something like that.
I also remember his dad trying to tell him that he needed to get a real job though.
I think the opposite is true.
Oh no, his dad was telling him to go on Social Security.
Right. His dad told him that he would earn, quote unquote, earn more money on Social Security than he would at any job that he was qualified for. And I think that's the other reason why Chris is so reluctant to actually find a job is because he gets Social Security. And that's probably like the first of his three neat bucks sources is what he calls his monthly tugboat.
I wish I had a monthly tugboat.
Don't we all?
Care to talk about some of his NEETbooks solutions? Because you mentioned that was his first.
Yeah, that's the one he's really famous for. And I guess like as a side note, his mother, his one living parent, receives a pension from whatever company she worked for. I think his mother's pension is largely going to things like paying the bills and keeping the lights on, that kind of stuff. It's his mother's pension is subsidizing his lifestyle, if not necessarily directly contributing to his bank account.
I guess, let me get this straight first. He's still living with his parents. Obviously, he's a NEET, so he probably lives in his
Correct.
mother's basement or something.
He lives, I don't believe he has a basement. He has a little room in the upstairs portion of his house.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's cozy.
Maybe. We'll get into it. I have a little picture of his room and we'll talk about it.
Her bills are paying. If her Social Security is paying the bills, what is his money doing?
Largely buying toys.
What a life.
Chris is notoriously awful with money. From what I understand, he is like 6 digits in debt, mostly
Holy
credit card
cow.
debt. Yeah, a lot.
That's
Um,
crazy.
he spends ridiculous amounts of money on video games and toys. There is a recent, I believe it's a Twitter post where he talks about how his mother impulsively used a windfall to pay the bills, and how he was like upset that he wasn't able to buy toys with that money.
A windfall.
That you have you heard that term?
I'm unfamiliar with it.
Oh, a windfall. It's just like you come into a large sum of money. Like, oh, I won a lottery. That's a windfall.
Oh, interesting. So she used this incredible sum of money to.
It wasn't incredible. It was probably like $1,500.
But he was upset that it didn't get to go to his meets.
Right. He couldn't buy toys with it.
That's crazy. That actually, I believe that goes against one of the core tenets of being a NEET, which is having to live frugally.
Yes. Yes, it absolutely does. Chris is the quintessential consumer.
Must consume.
He absolutely must consume everything. And I have a little theory about him that Chris's life almost seems to kind of revolve around consuming media and toys. He gets a lot of his ideas from like TV shows and movies. And it's tough to explain exactly like what I mean by that. It's just that, oh, here's an example. Chris, when he first started drinking alcohol, chose a Long Island iced tea as his first drink. Not because a Long Island iced tea is good and will get you absolutely hammered, but because that was the drink Marge Simpson drank on The Simpsons.
Really
And that was why he chose it. Yep.
interesting.
And there are many other examples like that where his political opinions are his political opinions, his ideas about how the world works are formed by what he has seen on TV.
Oh no.
Right?
So the idealized non-human world that is the entertainment industry.
Oh yeah. He is essentially the perfect TV watcher.
So you could argue his profession is consuming.
Uh Maybe. I don't know how you would be a professional consumer. Oh, well here's an even better example. Sonichu. Sonichu
Okay.
itself is like almost a testament to his consumption. Like he didn't make an original character. He just took two existing characters that he loved and fused them together.
Interesting. So the story's original though,
Mostly
mostly.
mostly original. It has a lot of it's a lot of like events from Chris's life. But yeah, so the events of Sonichu are kicked off by the final battle of Sonic Adventure 1. But other than that, it's largely original. It's largely an original story.
So video games literally rule his life.
Pretty much.
Incredible.
But one last NEETbucks source I want to talk about is again Sonichu itself. He has in some way attempted to monetize Sonichu, largely through Patreon donations. And of the three incomes, I'm pretty sure this is the smallest one, but it's also the most viable. It's the one he could really use to secure a comfy, neat lifestyle.
There's good potential for growth if he did produce work.
It absolutely would, and that's the kind of theme with a lot of these Neet spotlight episodes is that these that Chris is essentially staring an opportunity to make Neet bucks in the face and not taking it.
He has the opportunity for buku bucks, but lacks the drive to gather them.
Yeah, it lacks the wherewithal. He absolutely could live a comfy, neat lifestyle if he would just do something with Sonichu.
Does that make like you and I, if we had a neat lifestyle, would that make you and I the normies of the neat community? Tighten up your bootstraps and get to work making your neat bucks.
We are a little bit, I think in that way, we are kind of normie.
The normie neat.
I think we're a little different in that we're encouraging people to find their own means of income rather than say just get a job. But in that way, I think the fact that we encourage people to like work hard is a bit of a normie thing.
Because I mean, I guess even in a neat lifestyle, hard work still has to be done at some point. It's just part of living. Just doesn't necessarily mean you have to work for the sake of someone else.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think I think you pointed out the best difference that we say work for yourself instead of working for someone else.
And it doesn't mean having your own business. It means, you know, find your ways of making that passive income. Find your ways of living comfy.
Exactly. And I'm not gonna lie, old school Sonichu, I kind of love, and I can't quite explain why I like it so much, but it has kind of this outsider appeal to it. And by that I mean like Chris is emulating an art style that is comics, but he has no formal training and he has no idea how to really make a comic, but he's doing it anyway. And part of me kind of really admires that. And it comes from like a weird kind of personal place that I think is interesting. But the new Sonichu is pretty crappy. It's so tainted by troll influence that it's not interesting anymore. And they're not really stories of like Chris's power fantasies and his personal struggles, but they're just internet trolls tricking Chris into directing his comic here and there.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it's just like it's hard to watch just because you know it's not Chris making it anymore.
I guess that takes away from the value of it. It's no longer his story, is it?
No, it really isn't.
Like Chris is, from what I've understood at least, he's vastly more interesting when you leave him alone and let him do his own thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an undercurrent of like people who just wished trolls would leave Chris alone and just let him be a weirdo on his own. And we'll probably never get old Chris back because he's just been so relentlessly screwed with.
Irreversibly damaged.
Yeah, and that's sad to say that the internet could so thoroughly damage someone like that.
And Chris is not someone just to like turn it off and look away for a little while. He's
No, he absolutely isn't. I think that's part of why the internet was so interested in Chris is because he reacts so explosively to every little thing.
he's a reactionary. Interesting. I guess that's why we have so much documentation about him because
Yeah.
he goes into the ultra defense on
Mhm.
everything.
Right, and he's also extremely gullible. A lot of like reasons why the comic is the way it is and we know details about Chris are because women are or not even women necessarily, but people are pretending to be women and like tricking Chris into falling in love with them. And the comic has been influenced in that way more than once.
Really.
Yep, like very minor subplots, but it's usually like a girlfriend character will come in and then when that girlfriend is revealed to be a troll, she'll just be missing in the next issue.
That's hey, you know what? I'm not gonna fault the man's writing. He can handle it.
Can he?
You know what? When you're the most interesting man in the world, you can do whatever you want. But you mentioned earlier that we were gonna talk about Chris's room,
Yes.
and
Uh,
I wanna know about this man's neat nest. I need to know.
yeah. Did you get the image I sent you? For those of you watching on YouTube, I'm gonna throw up a picture of his neat nest, and we're just gonna pan from left to right. It's worth noting that this is a really old panorama of Chris's room. One, this is many years old, and two, events have transpired that not only like does Chris not live in this room anymore, but a lot of the stuff is gone because of a house fire. But I think we can assume this is how Chris normally constructs his neat nest. This is like the ideal neat nest for Chris specifically.
It's with this room destroyed, the thread of prophecy is severed.
Chris can't complete the main story anymore because his room got destroyed in a house fire.
Now we must live in this doom world that this house fire has created.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got the image open. I'm looking at something that is awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. all of the details in this room.
There's a lot of memorabilia here, and
A
it's like
lot.
custom memorabilia. It's not commercial.
Yeah, the Chris artifacts. Actually, yeah, we should talk about the Chris artifacts just a little bit.
Isn't that a source of income?
Kind of.
Kind of.
He's sold a handful of artifacts, including like one of his classic shirts, but it's barely income. He might make $1,000 on his artifacts on a good day.
Or you can buy a lot of toys with artifacts.
I think that's exactly what he does. Is he sold like his old shirt, and I think that old shirt that he's wearing in the picture made him like a pretty hefty chunk of change, and it just immediately went to toys. Mostly Legos, I think. He's really into Legos and Transformers.
I can't fault him for enjoying Legos.
Not gonna lie, I like Legos.
Sadly, they're getting more expensive, but they're really usable, you know?
Right, so we're gonna start on the left side if you're ready for the little tour of Chris's room.
Please just give me the whole shebang. I'm dying to hear about it.
Okay, so we got Chris coming into his little room, and in this, I don't know which corner this is, so we're just gonna call it the entrance corner. Corner one. And this is where all of his like physical video games are enshrined. I've definitely seen people talk about like you can tell the kind of priorities someone has in their life by like what they're organizing, and it's definitely visible here. He keeps his video games in a very neat and tidy order. You can see he keeps all the Sonichu you can see he keeps all the Sonic games in one area. It's kind of tough to tell what the other games are, but I think I see similar logos on them or like a similar package.
I think he's sorting them by console. The bottom, I think I can see like some Xbox 360 stuff, but as we go up, I can see like GameCube stuff.
Yeah, and I think the very top shelf is N64.
I think so. It's still very blurry, but I think that's what that is. It's much bigger packaging.
It's not the best image, but it's what we have.
I imagine this was good for the time this was taken.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for the quality of Chris's cameras. And in corner 2, we have what is called the Megan Shrine, and Megan was a pretty prominent character in Chris's life. One of the first, you could say, love interests of Chris, although she didn't really reciprocate. The fact that he enshrined Megan's creations long after they stopped being friends is, I don't know, what do you have to say about that?
Um, love can make you do weird things.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd imagine, if nothing else, I don't even know if he's technically loyal, but maybe lonely, desperate.
He's definitely like desperate for female companionship, and that's a pretty long-running theme in his life.
It seems kind of like an old. He seems a little old for it, but it might even be like a first true love kind of thing.
Ooh, that's an interesting idea.
The fact that it's maybe it might also be like the first love that's kind of to a degree sort of had a similar interest. I believe she was a Neet of sorts, was she not?
She was also a Neet, yes. Not much is really known about her outside of her interactions with Chris, and that's probably for the better. But we do know that she was to some extent also a Neet, and who was into a lot of the same things that Chris was. And she was probably the first woman. She was probably like the first nerdy girl that Chris had ever met. All of Chris's like female friends before were your typical, or I guess your stereotypical kind of girl who were into girly things.
That makes sense. This was that first like, I'm a girl gamer.
Yeah, I think it's very much like that. She was very into like Sailor Moon, and I think you can see some Pokemon characters there.
Yep, I see. Well, almost. I mean, I almost see like Mega Man-esque things, but I can't quite make it out. It's a little blurry.
Seeing are Pokemon, but drawn in the style of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Is that like Absol that I see? That like middle left one?
Yeah, I'm seeing Absol and Houndoom.
I can see Houndoom. I almost see that bottom right almost looks like Mega Man, the red one. I can't remember that one's name.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. You also can see My Little Ponies. Second shelf from the bottom, you can see some purple blobs that I think are My Little Ponies. And Megan was the person who got Chris into My Little Pony. Chris is often credited as being the first brony before that was a term. He was the first like male in his mid-20s that was interested in a show meant to sell hunks of plastic to little girls.
I mean, looking at this is awe-inspiring. Like
The shrine, or what are you looking at?
just the whole thing.
The whole of the room. The real impressive thing is that Lego thing, and we'll get to that. But there's right before the Megan shrine, there's one of two mysteries of Chris's room, and you can see between the Megan shrine and the big shelf of games are what appears to be these closet doors. And I'm pretty sure they are closet doors because I think I see a handle there.
I believe I see one as well. Those are like French style doors, right?
I think so, yeah. But like, what is in there? Why did Chris block off his closet? And what is he keeping in there?
That's where he keeps the monsters.
What did he seal away? What evil is living in his closet?
I gotta know, it's killing me.
It's not the door to Quickville because that's his that's behind the door that's the entrance to his room. The Quickville is the world of his comic book.
That's the Sonichu world.
Yeah, the world of Sonichu is called Quickville. And Christian believes he can access it through a portal that is behind the door to his room. But it's not in this closet, is what I'm trying to get at. And Chris is, if you're watching on YouTube, Chris is very apparently a hoarder, and I'm wondering like why Chris would seal off
Potential hoarding space.
pretty viable hoard space, yeah. Or at least somewhere he can keep some of his loose stuff that he's not really using.
So one thing I do know about Chris is he's often wearing that shirt. I don't know if he has a whole bunch of that shirt or if he wears the same one. Maybe he keeps his other clothes in there.
That's a possibility.
That's where he keeps his Dakimakuras.
He has a small wardrobe of kind of goofy shirts like that, but it's like the way that the shelves are positioned in front of that closet, it would be so difficult to access clothes in there that I can't imagine there's anything he really goes for in that closet.
Where he keeps his Rosachu Dakimakuras.
I wish there was Rosachu Dakimakuras. I'd get one.
That's where he keeps his workstation. Why we haven't seen any Sonichu comics in the past.
Oh yeah, you think he sealed off his workstation, his work
Yeah.
desk?
He can no longer work. He has no space to do so.
Right. All right, and enough about the closet. Now let's move on to like what you could argue is the centerpiece of the room. Um, you probably see this enormous Lego construct that stretches like, God, it looks like probably 2 or 3 tables.
This is incredible. I see 3 tables. I see one that like stretches from that game bookshelf outward, and then it turns into an L and stretches all the way to his kind of entertainment station. And it almost looks like it's bowing a little bit.
Well, that's a result of the panorama, I think.
It could also be the weight of the Legos on it.
I mean, that's definitely possible. I'm not sure Legos are that heavy. Yeah, so like, give me just a little bit more about what you think of this, or do you have any more?
All right, I have a theory.
Okay.
You said that his doorway is the doorway to Quickville.
Yes,
Is this Quickville?
you are absolutely right. I was about to mention that this is his rendition of the city of Quickville in his comic books, built in Lego form.
Oh my gosh, this is actually he kind of has a talent here. This is one of his neat talents.
You know, I don't know like how deep this goes, but I think there is like a niche of essentially professional Lego builders. Like they build enormous structures or sculptures of Legos in incredible detail.
I'm not even going that way. I'm talking just straight up like he could be I mean, a lot of people pay for sculptures of these kinds of things, but he could be a diorama?
Diorama. I think you're thinking diorama.
Yeah, he could be a diorama maker or like crafter.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, it's diorama.
he does seem to certainly have like a grasp of world building, and the fact that he's trying to map out the world of his comic book is definitely like I think that's evidence of that.
And this was lost in the fire?
Yes, I'm sure at least most of it was lost in a house fire.
Ah, it's such a shame. That can be crushing. I know if I lost,
Oh
you know,
man.
all of my work in a fire, that would probably break me. I'd probably just no point in doing it again.
You know, Chris, um for how sensitive he appears to be, he actually moves on quite quickly from disasters like that.
Really?
Yeah, he as far as I know, he didn't really show that much effect from losing all of his Legos in the house fire. He was certainly sad that he lost them, but I think he was more sad about losing the possession than he was about having lost all the work he did.
Really?
Mhm.
I would feel awful losing that work. So much effort thrown in.
Yeah, same here. And I guess to kind of continue on this thread of Chris being talented with Legos, he has continued his like Lego sculpturing in a not nearly to this extent, but he has made this really huge sculpture of like his old high school.
That's
I guess he kind of mapped out his old high school and made a Lego building of it, and it's enormous.
that's actually kind of incredible.
Yeah,
Uh,
it really is impressive when you see him like showing it off.
Props to this guy. I wish he would kind of develop these skills further.
Yeah, he's certainly got the spark of creativity. He just doesn't have the drive.
I mean, art is in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely.
This is incredible. This is a massive scale thing. I'd imagine this was not a quick thing to build.
Yeah, and I've owned Legos, you know, as a kid, and I've never built anything on this scale.
I've built large things, but I've never built something that's city spanning.
Right. Yeah, I've never had the idea to like build an entire Lego city. And I think even to adults this is kind of impressive.
I mean,
A little kid would certainly find it impressive.
I find it impressive, and I'm adult age. I think
Yeah.
this is kind of daunting to look at almost. There's a lot going on here.
You want to get in and like look at every little detail.
I wish we had a better picture of it.
There might be some video or picture of it out there somewhere.
I mean,
Maybe if I find it, I'll throw it into the podcast visuals.
this is a veritable dragon hoard of value.
It's definitely a dragon's hoard. I've heard Chris's room called the Dragon's Lair a couple times.
If he could sacrifice some of his stash, he could be living comfy for a while. I mean, he's got one of those fat Pikachu figurines sitting on his TV. I think those are something.
Oh yeah, he does. I'm sure. I think at least some of this stuff is what you might call vintage.
It's collector's item, I believe.
But underneath this workbench of his, where all the Legos are, is what I consider the second mystery of Chris's room. You see under the desk all of these VHS tapes. I think we have a good idea of what's on these tapes. I think a lot of it is like pre-recorded cartoons, but like part of me does really want to like get down in there and see what Chris has like in that library of tapes. You can see toward the right here the yellow Pokemon cartoon videotapes.
Hoarded away, stashed down there. Okay, there's an area of this room I really want.
What do you want it to, what is it?
The right corner.
The right corner.
So the rightmost point of this picture. I want to talk about that corner.
All right. Well, what do you have to say about it?
I can see what appears to be a whole bunch of Pokemon cards. Kind of look like old Pokemon cards. I can see a Sonic poster and maybe like a pile of laundry maybe.
Yeah, that does kind of look like laundry, doesn't it?
And for the rest of his room, his desk actually, comparatively speaking, is kind of empty.
I don't even see a desk.
Desk is right there. You can see his two speakers laying on it.
Is that a desk? Is that a desk? I thought it was his dresser.
That might be a dresser, but his dresser is like not used up in terms of space.
Yeah, you're kind of right. He has a little bit of bare shelf space on his dresser to put some more toys. I consider the Quickville Lego City to be his workbench.
That's his workstation.
Yeah, I think that's his actual workstation.
I thought it was in the closet.
Well, I mean, that's true too, I guess.
We don't really know what's in the closet. It could be the real Christian.
It's interesting you do point out these posters because for one, it's like it's a pretty hefty collection, but it's also like this corner of the room is dominated by posters.
He kind of separates everything.
Yeah, he's definitely kept them very nice and neat. And the farthest edge of this picture, I wish we could get a better look. What I'm seeing, okay, so I guess let's start from left to right. He's got a Pokemon poster. And then that wall of Pokemon cards, and I hate to disappoint you, but those aren't actual Pokemon cards. Those are I don't know how people do it, but they make custom Pokemon cards, and that's what is going on here. These are a bunch of Pokemon cards that Chris himself has made.
So they're painted over?
It could be like he could have used MS Paint maybe.
So I'm not disappointed in the least. In fact, I'm even more interested now.
Oh, you can find the whole list of his original cards on the Sonichu wiki.
Really?
Oh yeah. Do you want me to link you that page and we can maybe talk about them?
Yeah, give me a link. I want to take a look at some of these because these look like lost treasures. These are probably going to be something incredible.
Let's see. So the Wall of Originals is what it's called. Okay, here we go. There's a lot.
I can appreciate Chris's neatness. There's a lot of custom creations in here. Like, not everything is consumer goods. Some of this is actually his own making.
That is very true. There's some fan creation here. It's just things like it's all influenced by something else. That's the thing. Chris has never made anything truly original.
The wall of originals. I like his foil cards.
He just literally puts foil on them.
It's aluminum foil glued to a card.
Uh-huh.
These cards are like poorly cut out, like cardboard stock. What is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure how he makes these.
They're obviously not painted over because they're not straight cuts.
Right. And I think they are MS Paint where he's like taken an image of a Pokemon card and then an image that he made and then like scanned them both in and then put one image on the other. And I think that's how they're made.
This is still pretty impressive. If you aspire to be a NEET on Chris Chan levels, this is your moneymaker. This is your chance. I mean, it's not good, but him being so interesting, this is a way.
Right. And I think like due to the era of the internet and there's almost like a cultural movement toward outsider art. Does that make sense?
Towards like weird stuff.
Yeah, towards things that are weird or bad. Like people kind of seek out bad media, like The Room, for instance.
That's why things like The Room has exploded so much, or just bad stuff sells.
Yeah, and Chris, he hasn't monetized it nearly to the level that he really could or probably should. But he has monetized Sonichu to some extent. It's just he never does anything.
Let this be a testament to NEETs out there. Anyone can find success. You just gotta try, and if it ain't working, try harder, I guess.
This could be a pretty viable hustle for him.
I mean, he wouldn't be making massive money, but if he could mass print these, he could probably be making decent money.
He'd certainly make enough money to like
Get by for a couple years, unless he spends it all on toys.
possibly he could certainly make enough money to live comfy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hmm.
At least for a little while. This is not gonna last him forever. The nicheness of it,
Right.
unless he keeps creating, and then it kind of turns into Pokemon to a degree.
He does to a very limited extent continue making Sonichu, but it's like we said before, it's gone largely downhill.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But it is I guess like going back to that corner, it is interesting to see some of the things that influence Chris and I can see I see I think it's a drawing of his and of Excel from Excel Saga. Did you ever watch that anime?
I don't think I have.
It's I'm not gonna lie, it's not very good. um it was very popular when I was in high school.
I think I was just a little young for it, but I can see who you're talking about. You're talking about the little yellow.
Yeah, the yellow-haired girl. That was very popular when I was in high school, but to tell the truth, the humor is a lot of like LOL, so random type stuff. The kind of stuff that stops being funny when you're 15.
But until then, it's hilarious.
Steel Angel Kurumi, another thing that he's into. I've never seen Steel Angel Kurumi, but that's another kind of like early 2000s anime.
I think this is an interesting NEET nest. I wouldn't say Chris is one of the first NEETs,
No, he certainly isn't.
but this is like an advanced stage of NEET. He's hit several demographics here. Everything except for like the gym rat NEET and the homesteading NEET.
Yeah, he's absolutely not a gym rat. That is for certain.
He's the otaku NEET.
He's definitely an otaku kind of nerd culture style neat.
But he also has his own kind of creative sort of swing to him.
He's definitely creative when he can bring himself to be. I just wish he would make something original. I want to see what he can do when he has kind of abandoned uh I guess every creator is influenced, but when he makes something that's only ostensibly influenced instead of so heavily influenced that you can tell immediately what it's supposed to be, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So you actually think his room is pretty comfy. Is that a correct assessment I'm getting from you?
Actually, no.
No, you don't think so? Okay.
I don't think this room is comfy.
Okay, so you think it's interesting.
It's fascinating. There's a lot going on here. Someone's room can speak 1,000 words about them. There's 1,000 things here that each say something different.
Yeah, it's a huge collection of like disparate things, and it all comes back to like what kind of person Chris is.
He's a very disheveled person.
Exactly. And I agree. The room itself is very not comfy. It feels so crowded that I'd find it pretty claustrophobic, to be honest.
Yeah, so what would you rate this room? 1 to 10 and just a general quick statement.
I'm gonna say like out of 10, probably maybe 3 or 4 out of 10. And it's the reason I'm giving it even that high is because it's definitely got like let's say I was Christian, it's full of things that I love. So in that way it's comfy, but me personally would not be very comfy in this room, which is why the rating is so low. It's too crowded, it's too claustrophobic. And this might be kind of odd. There's a lot of eyes in this room.
Yeah, there's a lot it's kind of like going into your I mean, some people have a grandma like this. My grandma used to have a bunch of porcelain dolls.
Oh yeah. My grandma had old paintings of her of well, I mean I think they were our ancestors.
Like
Um
old, yeah, kind of family members long deceased.
yeah, old deceased family members, and yeah, they definitely like their eyes follow you around the room. And I get that in this room a little bit, that there's so many like depictions of characters in here, and they're all kind of looking out at you. Right? So I know that's very strange, but I think for also that reason I wouldn't be very comfy in this room.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. If I was to rate this room, I would have to give it a 2 or 3.
2 or 3? Okay.
Um, Personally, my way of living is very utilitarian. I have like 1 or 2 things up on my walls, and I prefer it that way because it's way less distracting, way less going on, way less to clean.
Yeah, way too much going on. A lot of like clashing colors to distract you. Visually noisy. You hit it right on the head.
It's super loud.
Um, do we have anything more we'd like to say about Mr. Chandler?
Yeah. To aspiring needs out there, let Chandler be a lesson. Christian Chandler. You could find success. You could find money anywhere. This is one of those things where like if he can be a neat anybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you had even a small percentage more drive than this person has to kind of assist you on your journey, you could be a neat. I think that he could be a neat.
Oh, before we go, I do want to talk about monetization just a little bit.
All right, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
All right, so here's what I'm thinking. We're obviously not big enough to qualify for YouTube monetization or anything like sponsors or anything like that.
Hold up, I'm going to stop you right there real quick. Thank you everyone for watching our first episode. We broke 100 views. That's exciting. That's big news.
Cool. That is cool. 100 views on the first episode.
Big thanks to all of you for that. That's incredible.
Yeah, one small step for Neat kind.
But as you were saying,
Right. So I think what we're gonna do is, I mean, I think most people can guess that we're gonna make a Patreon for the NEETwork, and I guess just at the end of the episode or at some point during the episode, we're just gonna start shilling that. I would like to think of some NEETwork merchandise for a Teespring or something like that we could sell. That should be just about it. So keep an eye out for the Patreon, and maybe send some of your neat bucks our way if you like what you're hearing.
it'd be really cool to help us on our way to neatdom.
Yeah,
Don't do anything outside of your means. You know, you have to hit your neat goals as well.
absolutely. And at least as far as keeping the NEETwork financially solvent, it's not going to be very much. Even like if 10 people gave $1 a month, that would essentially pay for the NEETwork. So don't feel like there's a lot of pressure to help us monetize the NEETwork. It's tough to talk about monetization because I don't know, it feels greedy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We don't necessarily want to, like, we don't want to suck the money out of, our listeners.
Yeah.
We want them to enjoy this, and we want them to, if they enjoy this and feel like this is something they want to see grow.
Now I'll walk us out. For everyone listening, thanks for listening all the way through to the end. If you like what you heard, you could help us grow in a few ways. If you're listening on Podbean, you can leave a like and consider downloading the episodes so you can take the NEETwork wherever you go. If you're listening on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It only takes a moment and it helps out more than you think it does. And if you want to get involved with a NEET community, take a look at the NEETwork Discord, where all things NEET are discussed. The link is in the description below. And with that, I'd like to say good night, and stay comfy, Dexter.
Stay comfy, Theo.